The sound of the excavator woke me before sunrise. I ran outside barefoot, still wearing the same clothes I'd slept in, and stopped dead at the edge of my driveway. A huge yellow machine was tearing through my family's 100-year-old barn. Wood beams crashed to the ground. Dust filled the morning air. And standing beside the machine was the HOA president, Linda Carter, holding a folder against her chest like she had every right to be there. "Stop!" I shouted. Linda turned slowly and smiled. "Grant, you were given plenty of warnings." I looked at the barn, then back at her. "Warnings for what?" "For an unsafe structure," she said. "The HOA approved its removal." My stomach dropped. That barn wasn't some old shed sitting behind my house. It had been built by my great-grandfather in 1924. My family had kept it standing through floods, storms, and 3 generations of repairs. More importantly, it was protected under the county's historic property records. Linda knew that. She also knew something else. The barn sat on the most valuable part of my land. For months, she'd been asking me to sell that section of the property. She claimed the HOA needed it for community improvements. But I had already discovered plans for a luxury housing project that would put millions of dollars into the hands of several people connected to the HOA board. I refused every offer. Then Linda stopped asking. She started threatening. First came fines. Then legal notices. Then a letter claiming my barn violated HOA rules. I fought every one of them because there was one problem with Linda's plan. My property wasn't actually under the HOA's authority. I had the original property deed proving it. And Linda had seen it. So when I saw that excavator ripping through my barn that morning, I knew this wasn't a mistake. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Linda," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Who gave you permission to destroy my property?" She laughed. "You don't understand, Grant. This property is under HOA control." "Show me." Her smile disappeared for half a second. Then she opened the folder and held up a document. "Right here." I stepped closer. The paper looked official. County seal. Signatures. Property number. Everything. But something about it made the back of my neck tighten. I zoomed in with my phone. The property number was wrong. Linda noticed me staring at it. "What?" she asked. I looked directly into her eyes. "That isn't my property number." Her face went pale. For the first time that morning, Linda wasn't smiling. And behind her, the excavator kept destroying the barn. Because she still didn't know that I had already made a copy of the original county records, and someone at the county office had warned me 2 days earlier that a forged demolition order was about to be used against my land. I had been waiting to see who would sign it. Now I knew. Linda Carter. And I had her confession on camera. But I had no idea yet that destroying that barn was going to cost her almost $6 million. Because hidden inside those old wooden walls was something worth far more than the barn itself. She thought she was destroying my past. She was actually destroying the evidence that would expose her entire plan. I didn't call Linda out right away. I kept recording while she stood there pretending everything was legal. The excavator operator looked nervous now, but the machine was still running. Behind him, half of the barn had already collapsed. And one of the old beams had fallen across the stone floor. My great-grandfather had built by hand. I pointed my phone at the document again. "Linda, where did you get this order?" "From the county." "Which office?" She hesitated. "That's not your concern." "It becomes my concern when you're destroying my property." She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You should have taken the offer when I gave it to you." That sentence changed everything. I looked at her. "What offer?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." "No, Linda. I want you to say it." She suddenly realized she was being recorded. Her expression changed. You're trying to trap me. No, I said. You're doing that yourself. She turned toward the excavator operator. Keep going. The machine moved forward again. Then I heard a loud crack. One of the main support beams broke. The entire side wall came down. I felt something inside me break with it. My grandfather used to tell me that the barn was the one thing on this land nobody could take from our family. Standing there and watching it disappear felt like watching a piece of my family history being erased in front of me. But I stayed calm, because I knew Linda had made one mistake. She had destroyed the barn before checking what was inside it. I walked around to the back side of the structure. The workers had already removed several boards, exposing a narrow section beneath the old floor. Linda followed me. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I kicked away 2 broken pieces of wood and pointed my camera toward a small metal box buried beneath the floor. Linda froze. What is that? I looked at her. You tell me. She stared at the box for several seconds. Then she suddenly shouted at the workers, "Stop." Everyone went silent. The excavator operator climbed down. Linda walked toward the box, but I stepped in front of her. You wanted this barn gone, I said. Now let me see what's underneath it. That could be dangerous. 5 minutes ago you were calling it an unsafe building. Now you're worried about safety. She didn't answer. I pulled the box free. It was old, covered in dirt, and locked with a rusted metal clasp. I had never seen it before. Linda stared at it like she'd just seen a ghost. That was the moment I knew this wasn't only about land. I opened the clasp. Inside was a stack of papers wrapped in plastic. Several old photographs, and a small leather notebook. I picked up the notebook. The first page had my great-grandfather's name written across it. But the next line made my heart stop. It mentioned the exact piece of land Linda had been trying to buy from me. And beside the property description was a handwritten note. This land can never be sold to a private developer. Linda stepped backward. Give me that. I held the notebook against my chest. Why? Because it belongs to my association. I almost laughed. You just said it belonged to the county. She said nothing. Then I heard sirens in the distance. Linda's face changed again. She looked at the road. 2 sheriff's vehicles were coming toward the property. For 1 second, I thought justice had finally arrived. Then Linda smiled. You called them? No. Her smile grew wider. I did. The first patrol car stopped at my driveway. 2 deputies got out. Linda immediately pointed at me. That man destroyed the construction site and threatened my workers. I stared at her. The barn was lying in pieces behind us. And somehow, she was telling the police that I had destroyed it. One deputy walked toward me. Sir, put the notebook down and step away from the property. I slowly raised my hands. Linda stood behind him with the biggest smile I'd seen all morning. She thought she had won. She didn't know the second sheriff's vehicle had stopped behind hers. And the man stepping out of that vehicle wasn't wearing a patrol uniform. He was carrying a sealed county evidence bag. And when he saw Linda Carter, he said 4 words that wiped the smile right off her face. We need to talk. The man carrying the evidence bag walked straight past me and stopped in front of Linda. Linda Carter, he said. I'm Deputy Chief Harris with the County Investigations Unit. Linda's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. He held up the evidence bag. We found the original demolition order. She looked at the bag. Then at me. Then back at him. You can't use that. It's private HOA business. Deputy Chief Harris shook his head. No. It's evidence. He opened the bag and pulled out a document. The real county order never authorized this demolition. Someone changed the property number, copied a county seal, and forged the signature of a county inspector. Linda stepped backward. That wasn't me. I finally spoke. You're right. She looked relieved for half a second. Then I continued. It wasn't just you. The investigators had already been looking into the HOA for months. My refusal to sell the land had exposed something much bigger than a property dispute. Linda and 3 board members had been working with a developer who wanted my land for a luxury neighborhood. They had used fake violations, fake inspections, and fake legal notices to pressure several owners into selling. But my property was the final piece. Without it, their development plan couldn't move forward. That's why Linda had destroyed my barn. She believed the historic designation was the only thing protecting my land. She was wrong. The real protection was buried beneath that barn. The old notebook contained my great-grandfather's original land agreement. It showed that part of the property had been placed under a permanent preservation restriction decades earlier. The county had never removed it. And the papers inside the metal box connected the developer directly to the HOA board. Bank transfers, private meetings, payments, names, dates, everything. Linda had destroyed the barn to remove the evidence and accidentally exposed where the evidence was hidden. The next few weeks were a nightmare for everyone involved. The HOA board was removed. The developer's offices were searched. The forged documents were traced back to Linda's computer. The excavator company provided security footage showing Linda personally giving the order to destroy the barn. And the sheriff's investigation found something even worse. Linda had already transferred money from an HOA account to a private company connected to the developer. She thought she was protecting herself. Instead, she had built the case against herself piece by piece. Months later, the case went to court. Linda's lawyer tried to argue that the demolition was a mistake. The judge looked at the photographs of my barn. Then he looked at the forged county order. Then at the financial records. Finally, he asked one question. Why was a protected historic structure destroyed before the county verified the order? Linda had no answer. The court found her responsible for the illegal demolition, fraud, property damage, and the financial scheme connected to the development project. The developer and several other people involved were also ordered to pay. When everything was added together, property damage, restoration costs, legal penalties, lost value, and the money taken through the scheme, the total judgment reached nearly $6 million. Linda had once stood in front of my barn and told me I should have taken her offer. Now she was being ordered to pay millions because she wanted my land so badly. But I didn't spend the money celebrating. I used part of it to rebuild. Not the same barn. I couldn't bring that back. Instead, I rebuilt a new barn on the original stone foundation, using some of the surviving wood from the old structure. Above the entrance, I placed a small metal sign. It carried my great-grandfather's name. And underneath it were 6 simple words. Some things are worth more than money. The new barn became a reminder of what happened. People from the town came to see it. The county placed a historic marker beside it. Families who had once been afraid of the HOA started speaking up. And I learned something I will never forget. Power doesn't always belong to the person shouting the loudest. Sometimes it belongs to the person who stays calm, keeps the evidence, and refuses to give up. Linda thought she was destroying 100 years of my family's history. She never realized that every piece of evidence she tried to erase was leading investigators straight back to her. And when I finally stood beside the rebuilt barn, I looked at the old wooden beam that had survived the demolition and smiled. They tried to take my land. They tried to erase my family's history. They tried to make me afraid. But in the end, they didn't destroy my barn. They destroyed their own cover story.